And comedy can say things that other people can't say. They can cut in and criticize in a way that's it's packaged in through humor, and it can actually change a society. But if you're not allowed to do real comedy, then are we all going to pay for that?
Yes, we will. Yes, absolutely, we will. I mean, there's so many things in what you said. I mean, the great value of the court jester about in medieval times was that he could say things that were a little bit cheeky about the king, but everybody laughed, and the king couldn't really get cross because everyone else laughed. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that the court jester was allowed to say things. And I know sometimes that I have that license as a sort of court jester. But there were so many things raised by that question. Ask it again, because there's at least two other things.
Yeah, no, there is, because, well, first of all, comedy, when done really well and intelligently, can change the narrative and the course of a civilization by pointing things out that a frontal assault wouldn't. For example, if you told the king that he was being lazy, you get your head cut off. But if a court jester does it, the king might get the idea and change his habits.
Exactly. That's why he was so important in a medieval court. But there were other things that you were saying. I can't remember but there were so many things packaged in what you said.
The other thing was that if we don't have that biting, real satirical comedy that's going to upset the woke people, which you're not allowed to do anymore because you'll get canceled and the publishers will get canceled. If we don't have that, how is that going to hurt our society 10 years, 20 years on, when we can't have that release, we can't have those ideas even entertained in our brains? I just wonder, what does that do to us?
Well, it means that there has to be a way of thinking, and you're in trouble if you don't think that way, which is, of course, the complete opposite of a democracy. It's good that people in a democracy argue, but they should argue and try and listen to each other. As I say, I've been following some of the trans stuff, but I've been getting quite a lot of stuff to read, and I want to understand why, if you disagree with the general trans attitude, that makes you a hater of transgender people. I don't get that yet. And I don't think I'll ever can get it, but I'm open to an argument that that's a form of hatred. Not that I can see. So if we are listening to each other, we learn. I mean, if you have somebody, let's say a Russian government, that suddenly decides that there are no innate abilities, as they did earlier on, then that meant that scientists had to come up with all sorts of science to do with the fact that everything is a blank slate and is formed by environment instead of from heredity. So you just get nonsense spoken. And at the moment, the biggest single nonsense is the refusal of science to accept some of the anomalies that are being pointed out by people who study psi phenomena. And as someone who's read a lot of the literature, all of it by scientists, there is overwhelming evidence that some of the psi phenomena exist. The science, standard science, can't face it.
You know, I've had a guest here that
they feel they can't explain it. And so they say that's not possible, instead of saying we don't have a theory that could explain that, which would be a more open-minded way of approaching the problem.
And these are like concepts about the universe and scientific ideas and big ideas.
So something like remote viewing, which is, there's a very interesting woman. She was the top woman in the American Statistical Association. She made a speech a few years ago in which she said most of the existence of these psi phenomena like remote viewing and precognition and telepathy have been proved. She said the only reason they haven't been proved is it's such a hot subject that the scientists won't accept it. But this is a very good example of how a sort of groupthink among a certain group of people just says you can't think or say that. I mean, if you are interested in psi phenomena, you can't study it at university. You can talk about it if you're a professor. One professor told me this, but you can't talk about it. And you can be interested as a student, but you'll never get a PhD thesis on it, despite the fact there are experiments out there which are absolutely inexplicable at the results in terms of ordinary materialist reductionist science.